Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installment of a different series every show. It is Tuesday, April 21st, an exact year since Pope Francis passed away. It both feels like it hasn't been that long. Like, I still remember that, like it was news yesterday. And at the same time, the new Pope feels like he's been around for a while now.
Just because he's been talked so much
There's
in
been a lot
media.
of news. You know, when I think about the Vatican, I think about the Lego Vatican.
Like from the Lego Batman?
Yeah, no, the Lego Batman.
The Lego movie. I don't remember the Lego Vatican.
What are like the most famous Lego sets of all time? Obviously, you've got Star Wars.
I was going to say Star Wars.
I think the Eiffel Tower has to be in there. But the Lego Vatican was a big one from like 2015. There was a guy who made it with 67,000 pieces. And I think they're even making like a newer one now. But
That's insane.
I think Legos replaced magnets for kids or Slinkies. Like,
or even puzzles, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like millennials, when they hit nursing home age, instead of having puzzles, they will have Lego sets. That's all that will be up there. That and
But
bingo will stay.
Have you realized that, like, depending on the person's age, Legos get smaller and smaller and smaller? Because when you're like 2, you get the big Legos, but then when you hit like 5, you start getting the small Legos.
Right, but then as you get super old, they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's like a cycle.
Yes, it's like a sine wave, back and forth. Yeah, so some comparisons for the miniature wife. I just want to jump right into this show because when you first see the cover, you kind of know what this is about.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Downsizing. You know,
Yeah,
the Matt
obviously.
Damon movie where he goes tiny, Honey, I Shrunk the whatever. I think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids turned into a TV show for a while.
Yep.
Rick Moranis, I don't think he was the person who was playing the dad in that.
I think they recast him. I want to see if you can get all the shows because a lot of the casts had comparisons.
Well, Stuart Little, of course. They even brought in Stuart Little, the cat from that. You know, that big white long-haired cat?
Right.
They have that in this show. And so I'm assuming that's going to be a problem for her. Now that I think about it, kind of like in Toy Story, you know how the toys were always afraid of the dog?
Yeah.
Like, I think that'll be the same thing with the cat. And then Willy Wonka's Wonkavision. Do you remember that from like the 70s?
No, I don't think I ever saw it.
You've seen the original Willy Wonka.
Yes, of course.
Where one of the kids gets stuck in that machine. It's kind of got a laser, and then it turns him into the thing on the computer.
In the movie.
But then the computer version of him like jumps out. So he was like a 3D animated person, and the laser was just like a very big version of what we see in this show. But instead of having like a fluid that is like sprayed on you, instead I think it just zaps you.
Well,
So I mean, the whole point is that there's a guy and his wife, and the guy turns his wife really tiny.
Right, but in yesterday's date, April 20th, but 70 years ago, pre-production was set to begin on the film The Incredible Shrinking Man, which came out in 1957, and that is a story about a man, Scott Carey, on vacation with his wife, who begins to steadily shrink after being exposed to a mysterious mist. And then it was remade 24 years later with The Incredible Shrinking Woman. And The Incredible Shrinking Woman and War of the Roses, the Danny DeVito film that came out in like 1989, are the two films that the creator, Jennifer Ames, said that the TV series is most like, despite the fact that this is based off of a book.
What about Ant-Man?
They didn't mention anything.
Paul
about
Rudd's
Ant-Man.
not confused in this at all?
However, I know that they made like huge things like oversized AirPods and talking about Legos, like Lego stairs, like these life-size things whenever they were shooting Elizabeth Banks scenes.
I do also wonder, because like the whole experiment is that this guy, his name is Les, he's a genius, and he's trying to like increase, I guess, how people transport food. And so like he's found a way to shrink food.
Yeah.
And it just seems like, what if she gets sprayed again? Does she go like quantum level? Is it like on Ant-Man where they can just get tinier and tinier and tinier?
Or can he reverse it?
Well, that's what he's going to be working on for the rest of the series, because at the beginning of the episode, she is not tiny.
Yeah.
By the end of they do they do a flash forward, so she is tiny, but like, you know what I'm saying. By the end of the episode is when we actually see her shrink. And so I would assume the next 7 episodes, is this an 8-episode series?
10-episode series.
10-episode series. So for the next 9 episodes, you're going to be seeing him try to work his magic and get her to balloon up to normal size.
Well, because the book came out in 2013, and it was actually a compilation book. It was called The Miniature Wife and Other Short Stories. It was one of 18 short stories in that book, but the short story is so different because it focuses almost entirely on the husband's character. In fact, the woman is already small small by the time that the short story starts. But they decided to give, I think, the Lindy in this case more of a three-dimensional character because she
Really?
really is only one-dimensional in the
So I
story.
knew it was based off a book, and then like fresh up the Scarpettas and the something bad is going to happen. I just assumed that when I heard that the husband was responsible for making her tiny, and I also heard like the first, I guess, narrative that Elizabeth Banks was saying in the first minute
Yeah.
or two. I assumed that this was going to be about how horrible her husband was. Like I thought we were going to get just the whole "my husband sucks" with a gimmick attached.
Right, because the show is supposed to be more optimistic, but the short story gets dark, and Matthew Macfadyen even says later on in the episodes it gets really dark. But it seems like there's always an unhappy couple in stories now. You have Something Very Bad May Happen, as you said, Beef season 2, Imperfect Woman, Scrubs Vanish, where it's just like they're either divorced or it seems like one of them is just really secretly evil in the end.
Right. I was just going to follow it up with I was wrong. Like, I thought that this was going to be another drama about how bad the husband was, but it ended up being hilarious. And that was because they have a weird cast of characters, a lot of Daily Show alum.
Yep.
And this is so much of a comedy, more so than it feels like a romance. I ended up shipping the leads because I think Tom's from Succession and Elizabeth Banks from Everything, like they can match each other's wits, comedy wits, and so they deserve each other by the end of this.
If you,
They are flawed individuals, but by the end of the episode, it feels like they're a match made in heaven.
who do you think Matthew Macfadyen is channeling? Because he channeled a specific person.
Oh, you mean like from a tech billionaire or something like that?
Not really. No, he was a scientist.
Oh, I don't know.
He said that he was channeling Bill Nye with his charisma and energy for the role.
He doesn't have Bill Nye's charisma.
Prior to the show, he was unfamiliar with him, but he said that he saw a ton of his clips.
How can you be unfamiliar, even if you're not millennial or Gen Z or something, and you grew up with them in your elementary school class with them, like playing it on the TV, his show? How do you not know who Bill Nye is?
Well,
that feels like a lie.
Matthew Macfadyen, how old do you think he is?
He's 50.
He's 51. So
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
really
like
good with ages.
he wasn't really like I think around for or really watching that show.
I know, but he's transcended into just pop culture, and it makes sense that everyone is super busy who's involved here because you've got Elizabeth Banks who has like turned her career from acting in a ton of comedies to now directing a ton of stuff. Like I think Cocaine Bear, the sequel, is going to be coming out soon, or at least they're in pre-production for making a sequel to that show. You've got Ronny Chieng, and then you got the other guy from The Daily Show, Asif Mandi, right?
Mhm.
And then the Handmaid's Tale guy who's going to probably be in The Testaments, I would assume.
He was also in Presumed Innocent. You're talking about O.T. Fugmangle as Richard, right?
He plays the guy that Lindy is having an emotional affair with. It's going to be interesting how they have their emotional affair now that she's super tiny. Also, did her phone shrink with her? I don't think so. So
In the
she
story,
doesn't get to use the internet.
in the story, I know that the husband does spray the phone so he can actually talk to her.
That's super
Happens
nice.
about midway through. Yeah.
That's got to make some sense. And then Death by Lightning, Tom's been super busy. I'm sorry, Matthew Macfadyen's been super busy. He tends to play the same type of character in a lot of his stuff.
Do you think he's typecast?
No, I mean like he as a person kind of emanates. So think about his role in Succession. Tom is always trying to rise up the ranks. You got Death by Lightning. He feels like he's being disrespected. He tries to get close to the president and the vice president at the time and ends up going off a little crazy. He feels like no one likes him. And so he is trying to elevate his position in the world. Mr. Paradox, when he was in the Deadpool movie.
Oh, yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine.
What was his whole deal there? He wanted more power. He wanted to elevate his status in the world of the TVA or whatever he was a part of. He wanted a promotion. And then in this, he literally states this is his last chance for greatness when it feels like the billionaire who has agreed to buy his product is then going to push him out. You know, he wants his Nobel Prize. He wants like a prize in physics or chemistry or whatever that he's working on. And that's what is the precedent for Lindy trying to leave him, the big fight at the end of the day, him not activating the device, but definitely using it on her when he gets mad enough and then immediately regretting it.
I feel like Les was channeling almost a Mark Cuban type of philosophy because he's not afraid to say that like he kind of puts his work first.
I think that that's wrong. I've heard Mark Cuban literally say that he wants to spend more time with his kids. Like, he's geared away the last few years of his life,
I always
pushing towards
remember.
his healthcare plan.
I remember there was a Shark Tank episode where he was like, if it comes between me and like a person I'm seeing, and that person says you have to choose, he says, "What's your name again?"
You're sure it's not the bald guy who said that? Because
Mr.
he seems like
Wonderful.
the more
Yeah, I feel like
sharky of the dudes.
it could be any of the Shark Tanks, honestly.
It could be, that's what they're called, the Shark Tanks. Yeah. So this first episode's called Lady Tomato and Mr. F Tomato Head. They have code names, kind of like the president, because they're rich enough to have this gala at the end of the day where it's like Tech for Tots, where it's a charity that they throw with like a bunch of people. They host this big party.
It's a charity auction.
You've literally got security going around talking to Les about where his wife is, and they all have code names. Yeah, so I think his code name, he calls himself Big Red, but I think she called him Mr. F Tomato Head because she's Lady Tomato. But that's the reason why the episode's named the way it is. To run down the synopsis of what happens, we start off the show. We see her when she's small. She's giving a small little...
it's a narration, a voiceover.
Yeah, voiceover about how she got there, why she blames her husband. Then we jump through the intro. I feel like it was a missed opportunity for them to use the Little Boxes intro from Weeds, because I think that would have made more sense given what the show's about. But then they jump to a date. They're about to renew their vows. Their marriage, how's their marriage doing?
Their marriage wasn't good at first, but
rocky.
It seemed like Matthew Macfadyen was starting to make up for it. Like he was invited back into the same bed, right?
Right. So like Les is a workaholic, self-described. Lindy is out having emotional affairs, actually with one of Les's partners. Was it what's his name?
Richard.
Richie, yeah. And so both of them sort of blame each other for the lack of support. However, Les is the one who's taken this opportunity to say, I want to win you back. And so that's where you see them have sex at the very start of the episode. And he says, yeah, this deal has to go through, and then we're all about being together. So Hilton Smith pops in there, and this is where you first realize it's a comedy, because Ronny Chieng, he does any role and suddenly it's hilarious. He's a billionaire. He runs by his own gut. He has someone else do the brain stuff for him. So he walks in there, they show him a miniature Ray, and his gut is kind of like, do I buy this? Do I not? Do I trust this less billionaire? Well, I'm going to attend his party tonight and really make a decision.
What do you think of the fact that it was missed and it wasn't like a gun where you really had to point it at anything?
It's on a truck. The laser that they wheel in is on a little like Tonka truck, and it just like aims towards a piece of corn, and it just shrinks it. The weird thing is that, like I said, the shrinking mechanism seems to be in the liquid that it squirts out.
Right.
And that seems like that would be super hard to like control where mist would hit. Like you might end up hitting the surrounding particles around you. So I don't know if
it's weird that it comes from a truck. That was my thing. I was wondering what that was for.
Again, just for comedy's sake, I think. Then we go over to Lindy's storyline, and you see Elizabeth Banks's character. She's an author. She's a professor, but kind of like a lot of the authors we see in these TV shows, she hasn't written anything lately. And so she feels like
writer's block.
Her husband is partially responsible for the fact that she hasn't had a big hit since her original one. She's been close to Richie, but I don't think they've slept together. So she kind of calls things off at the bookstore.
It was like an emotional affair, I feel like.
Yes, that's what she calls it. She says that like numerous times. And then in a misplaced romantic gesture, though, because Richie doesn't want to end things, he has submitted one of her papers, which is actually one of her students' papers, to a newspaper. I think it was like the New York Times, and they'd already agreed to publish it. So she has to play really quickly on calling her publicist, Terry, and saying, nix this as quick as you possibly can. Then this is where I realized that Lindy is not a good person. Like she's kind of in the same territory where Les and her both have their fails.
Yeah.
Because she goes to her student, and instead of just telling her the truth, because she doesn't want the repercussions of being in trouble, she says, you need to go off the grid, write a full book, and then come back with that, because I really like your paper.
Yeah,
she doesn't tell her or inform her at all about the fact that it might get published.
Do you think that that's where
under her name?
Do you think that's where the plot is heading, where it's going to get published and somehow the student is going to know about it?
And she's going to be tiny, so it's going to be really hard for her to like do anything about stopping it.
I feel like it's also kind of a sense of foreshadowing, right? Because she's like, you have to go off the grid, and obviously Elizabeth Banks or Lindy, she's going to be stuck in that house for a long time. time.
Well, it doesn't really matter. Like, if the student does exactly what she said, then she will just, like, turn off all her phones, go with her family into, like, some random cabin
No, I'm
somewhere,
saying
and
I'm
we won't
saying
see her again.
What Lindy told the student is,
Yeah.
in effect, what happened to her. She kind of has gone
She
off the
will.
grid in her
Yeah,
own
yeah, yeah.
way.
No, I see it now, what you're saying. That makes sense. So the charity auction is going down, and Lindy hasn't told Les, and I don't think she's planning to, about Richie or about this article. So, but she is stressed. So she arrives at the home, and apparently the previous year she had kind of raised an incident where she caused either herself or her husband to fall into the pool, and it was really
Yeah.
embarrassing. And so the security team is like on top of her, making sure that she's where she needs to be and not causing any sort of situation again. However, she does end up joining the party after yelling at the security team and getting a little drunk, starting a conversation with Hilton, the same guy who's supposed to be deciding whether or not to buy Les's
She
product.
didn't know it was him at the time.
Right. But she unintentionally actually helps the product get sold because she calls her husband a genius, even when she's trash mouthing him, right?
Yeah.
And so Les on the other end of the room, like in a different place, he's holding the toast. He's literally talking about the future of the company and all that jazz, and why it's important to give kids stuff. And that's when he hears that his wife is outside with Hilton. He rushes out there, finds out that Hilton's actually going to buy the product. However, that's what freaks him out, because then he learns that Hilton might be bringing in this bio spy, which is just a smart lady who's going to like take his basic breakthrough and steal it from him.
Specifically at this moment, whose side were you on? Were you still on Lindy's side more or Les's side?
At this point, it really was, they were both on the same side because they'd gotten exactly what he wanted from the very beginning, which was to make this deal. It only starts to unravel when he goes to talk to Lindy, and he says, they're taking my invention and they may run with it. They will get all the credit for it. I really don't want that. So let's delay everything, or like, and she calms him down. She's like, don't worry, I've got your back, like blah 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 blah. And from hearing that, he miscalculates and he's like, great, we'll push the vows back a year. We won't do our original plan. Let me go work on this for a full year. And that
doesn't
breaks her.
doesn't he say like I love you at the
the
very end?
quick the quickness to which that happened was also played for comedy. Like,
Right.
again, this is like super self-absorbed behavior. He runs off to try to save his experiment, leaving her to call Richie immediately and say, no, I want to run away with you again. So she has a flip. And then he runs into the biospy lady, Vivian, I think is her name.
Yeah.
And she says, I'll give you the night. And he takes his experiment and he sticks it in his bag. He brings it back home just as Lindy is about to leave.
Yeah, she literally says, I'm going. And then he's like, if anyone should be leaving anyone in this relationship, it should be me. And it turns into
Yeah,
this
I love
giant
the
spat.
response, because it was like, usually in this scene, especially if he was still Tom,
Right.
he would break down and he would start like crying or something. I don't know, but he would
Probably
like make this
apologizing too.
super sad, dopey face. Instead, he's like right back at her and he's like, what are you talking about?
I
Like,
thought that the argument was the best scene in the whole show.
they play off each other so well. It's why I want them to stay together as a couple until he shrinks her. But like the arguing ensues. He keeps on accidentally hitting the remote in his pocket. That causes the device to activate.
Not only does it activate, it like comes out of a box and then it like slowly
Right. It was
goes
in
sort
his
of thing.
bag and it
Yeah.
just like rolls out and it gets right in front of her. She picks it up. And then that's when she says something super mean. I forgot exactly what it was, but then he's like, whatever. And then he presses the button, it sprays her. You see in his face, he's like, oh shit, I really shouldn't have done that. And then he sees her shrink, picks her up because he's not sure if she's still alive. She wakes up and then starts running away from him, but she's really tiny, so he can pick her up. She's 6 inches tall.
Well, she runs into a pole.
She runs
which-
into the bottom of the stool
Right.
in their coffee room, or in their kitchen, and that's where the episode ends off. And I thought it was quite funny.
Well, it was annoying to me because it's like if you've seen the trailer, even if you've seen the poster for the show, and it does have the excuse that it's 10 episodes, so it'll probably have to cover a lot more ground. But it's like that was the first episode's cliffhanger. That's just the show. That's kind of what we wanted to see, and we only got her being miniature for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Overall, though, like I'm so conflicted about the show because I can totally see how it could turn bad. I can see how it could either lean too far into the romance, or maybe we get less Ronny Chieng, and so I won't be like as like I feel like I had the a little bit of blinders whipped on as soon as I saw that it was going to be outside of what I was expecting.
Which,
It's
yeah,
not just going to be another thing where, oh, the husband sucks the whole time. This is going to be an equal opportunity of madness. And he just has to build her like a Mario mushroom,
yeah.
like one of those just a boop, 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 and then she'll be normal sized again and they can live their life happily. It's a goofy premise. I'm probably just going to give it like a 6 out of 10
A 6 out of
because I'm
10, okay.
playing wary. But like, yeah,
Are you gonna watch the rest of it?
I may even tune in just to see sort of how it ends.
Well, yeah, which was Ronny Chieng your favorite supporting character? It feels like he
He's
kinda always
becoming
is.
like at first when I used to see him, it would annoy me because he was so over the top.
Mhm.
But once you get used to him,
Like the rise and fall of Reggie Dinkins, like recently,
I don't even remember him in
talking
that.
about recent cameos. He played like the boss to the wife, I think,
He
of Reggie
usually
Dinkins.
is so quickly in there, but yeah, no, he's so confident in his, dumbness that
Yeah.
I'm totally for it. So yeah, no, he was definitely a perk in the episode, but I do think that the main leads were quite good. I enjoyed seeing Matthew Macfadyen in this role more than I did in Death by Lightning.
No, well, yeah, but I mean, one is also a comedy and one is kind of
One,
like
he's
a
playing like one of the most
yeah.
dastardly evil dudes of all history. Yeah.
And I know that the creators, this is the first show they've ever created, but it's strange because they've written a couple of action-packed back shows, Jennifer Ames and Steve Turner, like Banshee, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, Bosch. They have
See, had I known that going in, I wouldn't have assumed this was just going to be a drama romance.
well, it's strange because it's just so different from their actual stuff. And then they got like a director who's directed a lot: Superbad, Adventureland, Paul, episodes of Undeclared, Arrested Development, The Comeback, Dave, Nobody Wants This, the 2 episodes we reviewed, even Peacemaker. So
It reminds me kind of the Honey I Shrunk the Kids Disney show again, like coming back to that because they would always have these weird episodes that weren't just about shrinking.
mhm.
Yeah, so it was just about scientific breakthroughs and stuff. Yeah.
I know that it has a 6.1 on IMDb with around 1,000 reviews, 59% on Metacritic, 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score is kind of 55%. So it aligns with you, and the Times UK gave the series 3 out of 5 and says it is a pleasant enough diversion, which feels as though it should be on at Christmas, but I wouldn't put it in the
Yeah,
category of must see. It did have that feeling, didn't it?
it does feel like it's going to be have like this wholesome ending.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
It's supposed to be optimistic, and any fans of the short story are not going to be happy because that short story gets so dark. They said that the first episode is more like the starting off point, but that it diverges so much from the end.
Okay, so I could see like an evil version of this, but I'm not sure if I would like it as much because again, I think the leads are so compelling. Overall, 6 out of 10 for me. You have any interest in watching the rest of it?
I'm definitely going to check out the second episode. If it gets really good, I might watch it.
Yeah, let me know. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.